Hey, welcome to the comfort zone. Bye. This is my puppy. Her name is Little One. She's a Chiweenie. She's just such a good dog. She wants to lick my face. The book that I am bringing you guys today. Dead Set by Richard Kadrey. Now this book is fiction. It is a fiction story. I'm pretty sure it's a young adult story, though I didn't find it in the young adult section. But it's written as if it was a young adult story, and the main character is like, it never really tells you how old she is, but she's like a sophomore, junior in high school, so she's got to be like, what, 14, 15, 16, something like that. And I feel like most young adult stories have a main character around that age. Though some of the language in this book is not young adult appropriate, so I don't know about this one. It's great. It's a good book. I like this one. But oh my god. That was crazy. Y'all, I got some ghosts up in here or something, because my window just shut all by itself. And my dog's like tripping out. That was scary. See, look at her. That window just closed all by itself. That was scary. Anyway, so the main character in this book, her name is Zoe. Is it just me, or are there a lot of books in this world who has a main character or even just a side character with the name Zoe? I feel like Zoe is such a popular name. I don't understand. But anyway, so this book is based around Zoe, obviously, and her father, who died of a heart attack about 6 months ago. So Zoe's father was the sole provider for the family. Zoe's mom could be a stay-at-home mom because he made a decent amount of money. They had a pretty nice house with a nice backyard, and then after he passed away, because her mom wasn't working, they were forced to move out of the house that they were living in, and they had to move into this rinky-dink apartment while Zoe's mom tried to find employment. And during this whole time, Zoe is really struggling with the fact that her father's gone. She develops self-harming issues. She's suicidal. She is actually put into some sort of psychiatric care. It doesn't really specify really what kind of psychiatric care. It just says that she has some sort of psychiatric care. She does speak with a therapist that helps her with some coping mechanisms. Now, one thing about Zoe is that she has dreams. I mean, all of us dream, but her dreams are a little bit different. Her dreams all take place in the same place, and they all have the same one person in that dream. And this person is her brother. She never had a brother, but in the dream, she just knows that this person is her brother, and his name is Valentine. And the funny thing is I didn't know how to say Valentine's name. I wasn't sure if it was like Valentine or Valentine until the last freaking chapter of the book. It explains why his name is Valentine, and that's when I put it all together, what his name actually was. I wasn't sure. This book is full of characters and places with names I cannot pronounce. And that's how I know I'm gonna like this book, is if I can't pronounce some of the names, it's gonna be a dope book. At least for me. I like it when I can't pronounce their names. I'm weird. But yes, so every night when she goes to sleep, she automatically is in her dream. She is in this treehouse that her and her brother built, and it's always just him and her. The treehouse is high up in the tree, and there's mountains everywhere, and it sounds like a beautiful place that her dreams are taking place in. And Valentine is the only person that Zoe can really talk to and really connect with after her father died, because her and her mother don't really have the best relationship. So she relies a lot on Valentine, even though he's just a figment of her imagination. And so once the story really starts progressing, Zoe is just getting over all of the emotional trauma that she experienced from her father passing away. She is at a new school where she doesn't know anybody. Nobody knows her. She left all of her friends behind when they moved, and so she's just a lonely child. At this new school, Zoe has a tendency to cut class a lot just because she's really not liking being at this new school, not having any friends or anything. So one day she decides that she's going to cut class. She goes home for a little bit, and then she decides she's going to go for a walk. And she lives in San Francisco, California. And so it's a big city. And so she decides that she is going to go for a walk. And she kind of gets lost, and she's just making her way down the streets, through alleyways and stuff. And then she comes across this record store. Record store is important for a couple of reasons, because before Zoe's father passed away, he was a music junkie. That's something that they bonded over, was music, rock and roll specifically, but just music in general, really. And so when she comes across this record store, she wants to go in, she wants to check it out. And when going into the record store, she meets a character who ends up being a major role in the book. And he's kind of the person who kind of turns Zoe's life upside down. So the character's name is Emmett, and Emmett owns the record store that she has just discovered. And as she's walking around, she sees this back room that has like one of those beaded, I don't know what they're called, like the things you put in front of the door that are like the beads that hang down. I don't know what they're called, but there's one of those. And she decides to go through it, and back there's a whole bunch of other records back there. And this is the only room that has lights in it. The entire rest of the shop is like super dark, and then this room is lit up. It looks nicer, it looks better than the rest of the record shop, and so it kind of catches her eye. So she sneaks back there, not really sure if she's allowed to go back there, but she sneaks back there anyway. So she finds this back room, and all of the records that are in this back room are a little bit different. They're either unmarked or have names and titles that she's never heard of before. So when Emmett comes into the back room, she asks him about the records, and he tells her that they're a special kind of record. They contain souls. And she's kind of like, what do you mean they contain souls? And he's like, here, I'll show you. And so he brings her over to this machine, and he starts hooking her up to this machine. And at first it looks just like a regular record player where you would place the record, put the needle on it, and it would play music. But it has this extra attachment that he starts to put on her. It's like something that goes over her head and then around her jaw, and then it covers her eyes and it covers her mouth. And she's kind of freaking out that he's putting this weird contraption on her head, obviously, but she lets him do it. And then he's like, hey, are you ready? And she's like, yeah, I guess, just show me what these are about. So he puts the needle onto the record, and immediately Zoe is like transported to this other world. It's like she can feel everything, she can hear everything, she can see everything, she can smell everything. It's like her body is still in the record store, but her soul is like in a different place. And it turns out that she is reenacting or reliving, I guess, something that happened to someone else. And in particular, the one that she's watching is a pregnant woman from like the 1840s, like from like a long time ago. And so she's like reliving a moment in this woman's life. And so after she kind of experiences that, he takes it off of her, and she's kind of like, oh my god, what the heck was that? And he's like, I told you, these are souls, these are past lives, these are people who have now passed away. And he makes a comment like, do you want to see your father? And she's like, yeah, I want to see my father. And he pulls out this record, and he tells her, I can show you your father, but I need something from you first. And he asks her for a lock of her hair. And that should have been the first sign that Ish was about to go bad, because that's like some voodoo witch doctor vibes right there, that he wanted a lock of her hair in order to show her her father's life. But Zoe was like, okay, yeah, I got you. I will be back tomorrow with a lock of my hair and you can show me my father. And that's when everything goes downhill. So she goes back the next day. She brings him a lock of her hair and he plays her the record of her father's life. And at first she gets to see how her mother and her father met, and then eventually it turns into her seeing how he died. Obviously very upset, and she's like, I just want to talk to my father. That's all I want. I just want to talk to him. And Emmett says, you know, I can make that happen. And she's like, okay, I will give you whatever you want. Just tell me what you want. And he tells her that he needs one of her teeth. She doesn't end up giving him one of her teeth. She steals a tooth from her biology teacher. I guess he has a jar of teeth in his classroom, and she ends up stealing one of those to give to him. The next day, when she brings him the tooth, he hooks her up to the machine again. He plays the record, and she is again teleported, I guess, to this new world. But it's a little bit different this time because she's not seeing it. She's herself. She's not seeing it in somebody else's body. She's seeing all of this in her own body. And she's on a bus, and this bus is taking her to wherever her father is. And when she gets there, she's not the only person on the bus, and everybody on the bus just seems very calm, like this is all normal. And so when she gets there, everybody's getting off the bus. She's kind of walking around. And the place is beautiful, apparently. There's beaches. It's nice and sunny. Everybody seems pretty happy. There's people eating at a restaurant. Like, it just seems kind of like a normal place. And so she ends up finding her father, and her father is actually kind of upset that she's there, because he's like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. This is dangerous. And she explains to him like how she got there. And he's like, okay, I understand why you did it, but this is the last time. Like, you can't do this again. I don't want to see you again until it's your time, until you pass away. I don't want to see you again. And so they spend the day together, and then once everything is over, she gets back on the bus and she goes back home, but in reality he's just like taking the contraption off of her. It's hard to explain. The author explains it much better than I did, but Emmett takes the contraption off of her and she's thrilled, and she's like, okay, I have to take my father's record home. I don't want it just sitting here collecting dust. What do you want for it? I need to take this home. And he tells her, sure, you can take it home, but I'm gonna need another thing from you, obviously. And she's like, okay, what do you want? And he tells her, I want your blood. I need some of your blood. So what does she do? She goes home. She goes to sleep. The next day she gets up, she cuts herself, and then she collects the blood on a Kleenex, and she is ready to go to the record store. So she makes her way to Emmett's record store, and when she gets there, all the doors are locked. It's super dark in there, and so she starts like pounding on the door, yelling and screaming, and Emmett opens the door and he's like, who are you? What do you want? Obviously not recognizing her. And she's like, Emmett, it's me. I'm here to get my dad's record. Like, let me in. I want my dad's record. And he's like, I don't know who you are, you crazy woman. And so he throws her out, and she is completely distraught. She's super upset. She's panicking because all she wants is her father's record back. And in the midst of her panic, she hears this whisper, and it's like she doesn't see anything. She can't see anybody, but she hears this whisper, and it's Emmett's voice, and it tells her, I know that tooth wasn't yours. And so she's like, oh my God, I've been caught. Now he's gonna destroy my father's record. Who knows what he's gonna do with it? I need to do something. So she goes home and she makes a plan to later in the night break into the record store to steal her father's record. So she comes up with this elaborate plan. She sneaks out of her house at like midnight. She makes her way to the record store, and she kind of has to wait around for a while because Emmett's still in the record store. But when he comes out, she notices that he's got a couple of records, and she automatically assumes that the records that he has, one of them has to be her father's. So instead of trying to break into the record store, she decides to follow him. And instead of Emmett like walking home or getting into a car to go home, he goes into a sewer drain. And so, of course, she decides that she's going to follow him into the sewer drain. It's kind of weird that he's going into the sewer drain, but she wants her father's record. So she follows him into the sewer drain, and at some point she ends up losing him, so she's just kind of making her way through. She's like listening to the sounds and following the sounds, because throughout the entire way he's whistling, so she can hear him. She can't see him, but she can hear him. And so she's just following the sounds, and eventually she gets to this opening, and when she goes through this opening, she's in this really weird place. It's obviously not home anymore. This book gives me mad Coraline vibes, like Tim Burton Coraline. That's what this book reminds me of from this point out, or from this point on. So when she goes through the door, she's in this new place. It's super dark, it's rainy, and she doesn't see anybody. She doesn't see Emmett. She doesn't see anybody. And so she's kind of walking around. She's walking up and down streets. And the farther into this new place that she's getting, she's starting to see more people. But these people are kind of different. Like, everybody's really sluggish. Everybody's really slow. And she notices that some people, they're not like full people. Like, some people have arms made out of rods instead of actual arms. Or their legs are like made out of metal. Like, they're not full people. And there are these really creepy dogs that are everywhere, and the dogs are like undead dogs or something. Like, they're not normal dogs, and they're kind of creepy. So as she's walking around, the people that are there start to notice her and notice that she's different. And to these people, different isn't good. And so they start to follow her, they start to chase her, and so she's running away from these people. And then as she's running away from these people, someone grabs her and pulls her into this dark alleyway as the people who are chasing her run by. They've got her mouth covered, like total scene from a movie status. And once they finally let her go, she's like, "Who are you? What are you doing? Like, why did you do that? Like, are you good? Or did you try to save me?" And then she comes to figure out that this person who saved her is her brother Valentine, from her dreams. Like, she sees him and she's like, "Oh my god, you're Valentine, like you're you." But he doesn't look the way she sees him in her dreams, because part of his face isn't real, and like he has like metal arms, and like he looks like the rest of the people. And she's like, "What is wrong with you? What's going on?" And he's like, "Well, I'm dead. Like, I really am your brother. Your mom and dad just never told you about him, but I'm dead. All of these people here are dead." And she's like, "Where am I? How did I get here? Where am I?" And he says that you're in now, I can't pronounce this. This is another one of those names that I cannot pronounce, but I think it's Iphigene. I'll put it right here on the screen, and maybe you can tell me how the heck you pronounce this, because I'm not 100% sure. But he says, you're in Iphigene. And she's like, "Oh, is father here?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's here. He's not how you remember him, but yeah, he's here." And so she wants to find her father, and Valentine is like, "That's probably not a good idea. This isn't a safe place for you to be. If the queen finds you, it's gonna be all over. Like, she'll kill you. Like, she cannot find you. You're not even supposed to be here." And Zoe is like, "The queen? What do you mean?" And the queen, again, has a name I cannot pronounce. It's Hecate or Hecate. I'll put it right here. Don't know how to pronounce this either, so if you can pronounce it, you please let me know. But the queen took over Iphigene, and she stole the sun. That's why it's so dark. That's why it's never, so in this place, it's never daytime. It's always nighttime, because when she died, she took over the place, and now she's the queen. And she is a horrible woman that throughout the entirety of the book, from this point on, Zoe's running from. And so Zoe asks Valentine to help her find their father. And so he agrees. He helps her find their father. And when she finds her father again, he doesn't have like metal limbs or anything because he hasn't been there long enough to be all messed up like that, but he definitely looks different. Like, he doesn't look clean. He looks like he hasn't slept in 50 years. Like, he doesn't look good. And again, he's super upset that she's there, and he's like, you gotta get out of here. You can't be here. And Zoe's like, well, I don't know how to get back. I'm not even sure how I got here in the first place. Like, I'm lost. And her father's like, we gotta figure this out. We gotta figure out a way for you to get back home because it's not safe for you to be here. And again, he mentions the queen, Hecate, or Hecate, however you say her name. He mentions her and says, if she finds you, you're dead. Like, we got to get you out of here. And so the rest of the book is basically Zoe trying to find a way to get back home, but also fighting all of these emotions because she's finally found her father. Her father is clearly in danger because things obviously aren't right here in Infogene, but she doesn't know how to help him. And she's also fighting with the emotions that Valentine, this dream brother that she has, is real. Like, he really was her brother that she never knew about. He died. He passed away before they ever met or anything. But she's fighting with the emotions of having to leave them behind. She wants to bring them back home, but knows it's not possible. And so the entire story is just Zoe, again, trying to get back home, but fighting with all these emotions, having to leave her family. And it's really sad. Like, I can't imagine losing one of my family members and then finding this world where they're alive, where they're there, where you can physically be with them. Like, I understand her kind of wanting to stay there, or at least wanting to help them or wanting to get them back home. Like, I can't imagine the struggle and the emotions that you would feel having to deal with that. Book is really cool. Like I said before, it gives me like Mad Coraline vibes. Like, everything is kind of dark, everything's super creepy. Like, it starts out like really pretty when she first meets her father and the place is really pretty, and then as she starts to figure things out, everything starts to get really dark and people don't look the same, and people who she thinks are her friend really aren't her friends, and they're trying to hand her over to the evil queen. And it's it's really cool. It's dark, it's kind of creepy, but it's a really cool story. I enjoyed reading it a lot. It's not super long. It's like, it's 307 pages, so it's not a super long read, but it's really cool. I liked it a lot. Well, that's it, you guys. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you really like this video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss a post. I will see you guys next time here at the Comfort Zone. Bye.